I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers. And this is This Week
in Cruton.
It's Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at Next Level D1. Are you like... You're like, for you, fundamentally, the book is closed on 2020?
To a certain extent, D2s, D3s still are looking for some guys. We have a lot of unsigned guys in our database right now to market to those schools. But now it's like hitting the reset button, trying to find players, and so it's different.
Yeah,
like this is like today. I felt relaxed for the first time, and I don't know how long, for whatever reason that is.
Well, good. Let's stress you out now with some content.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's start
with our prospect on the rise. Prospect on the rise, going down to Houston, to Humble, most notably, to Summer Creek, where 2021 wide receiver Elijah Bean is blown up. Just in the last couple of days, he's picked up a Baylor offer and 2 Big Ten offers in Indiana and Northwestern. That is to go along with, and those were his first Power 5 offers. I'm sorry, he had an offer from Iowa State and Pitt, but he also has offers in-state from Houston and UTSA. 6'5", 185, as they say, you can't teach that.
You can't, and he moves much quicker than what you would expect a 6'5" guy to move. When you saw him on that very first highlight clip that rolled here, it looked like, wow, like he doesn't even give the appearance that he's 6'5", and I think that's kind of why you see the blow-up starting to happen. He's 11.05 100-meter dash guy. He earned all combine honors at the All-American Combine earlier in January in San Antonio, Texas. A lot of good talents are out at that. Just one of those mismatch problems. So I think you'll continue to see offers steadily roll in for him. And Baylor is kind of like that marquee offer right now on his list. You mentioned Iowa State and Pitt and Indiana and Northwestern. They're good offers, but Baylor is that one where other schools are going to look at that and say, well, now that Baylor's offered in-state, we've got to accelerate our recruitment of Elijah Bean. So I think you'll see more come in.
Very long. Yeah. Like, he is – I can see this guy testing well. You know what I mean? In that he's just got all – like, he is all arms and legs. Right. But there are some guys who are all arms and legs and are coordinated, but this is a guy who's certainly got a little bit of everything. And, that's the first thing that I noticed is, like, there's a highlight we had. He just kind of ran him on a wheel route, and he is just, like, long strides like a gazelle out there.
Right. And just a lot of fun to watch. We could actually probably call this recruiting notebook the Twin Towers edition, because the next guy, the commit of the week we're going to roll into here, also has a lot of the same attributes.
Well, why don't we use that as a
Let's
segue to our commit of the week?
Very
Our commit of the week is in our
private transition.
In the private school ranks. Plano John Paul II wide receiver Gerald Bradley, also 6'5", 190, basically the same kind of frame. He is committed to Texas Tech. The Red Raiders are getting him after he chose them over places like Arizona, Arizona State, Arkansas, Utah, things like that. Overall, another guy that is a true one receiver out there. Really impressive.
More of a vertical threat. What I really like about Bradley is his ability to high point the football. He has a huge catch radius. The differences between what I think that we just watched a video of Elijah Bean, and they have a very similar height and frame, but very different players. Bradley's more smooth, has got those long arms to pluck the ball out of the air. Not saying that Elijah Bean doesn't have that, but they're just cut from a different cloth, so to speak.
Sure.
And you can easily tell that when you watch these guys play back to back. And what I really love about Bradley, who plays on the private school level, is he dominates. It's not like one of these guys who goes out there and puts ho-hum statistics on the board. He had almost 100 receptions, 1,600 yards, around 1,600 yards, over 20 touchdowns, and helped lead his team, which really kind of John Paul II isn't a team that was a private school power, led them to the state championship game last year. So you're talking about a game-changing type of kid.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one thing I think we get a lot of questions about is guys who play the private school level. It's hard to gauge in the state of Texas.
Can be.
Yeah, it can be hard to gauge. But here's a guy that if you took a look at the guys that they played Dallas Christian. They played Bullard Brookhill, was a really solid private school squad. They played Plano Prestonwood. They played Dallas Bishop Dunn. They played, Parish Episcopal. And in the playoffs, they played Nolan Catholic, San Antonio Prep, and then Parish Episcopal again. Like, they from a private school perspective, you can't say they played a weak schedule. They played some really outstanding squads, and he dominated out there during it.
He literally looks like a college player playing against a junior high team.
And that's, to me, and this is my untrained eye, unlike yours. My untrained eye is like from a private school perspective, and then I would say on some small school perspectives when you're talking about 2A, 3A, even the 6-man ranks, for a guy to jump off the page at me, like, as a prospect, he's got to go out there, and I got to be like, oh no, he's the guy. I can tell.
Well, and what's even more impressive about his numbers is that he was on the same team as DJ Johnson, who was a pretty high-profile 2020 tight end / wide receiver recruit. Picked up some nice offers. Hasn't signed, I don't think, but is because he's a big-time basketball guy as well. So he has some basketball options, but that offense has good players on it. But Bradley is the guy, so that's impressive. Good early pickup for Texas Tech. They're no strangers to getting good wide receiver talent. As a matter of fact, I'd say that's the position they recruit best.
By the way, that Bishop Dunn game, I have to bring this up every time we bring up that game, that John Paul Bishop Dunn game. That was the game that went 11 overtimes. So there's that.
You go.
All right. Next up in our This Week in Recruiting Powers Next Level Athlete is Underclassmen of the Week. And we're going back down to the Houston area. Kansas has offered linebacker Martrell Harris from the Woodlands, a 2022 kid, so he'll play his junior season in this upcoming year. He wasn't able to suit up in 2019.
Transfer rules.
Because of transfer rules. But you got to see him at the Next Level Athlete, top 100 showcase, and I know you came away pretty impressed.
Well, and that's kind of why I want to shine the spotlight on him, too, is, this is a video that you're getting to see here that not a lot of people have seen Martrell Harris do football stuff. So getting to see what he looks like in person, verify his skill in person, has played a role, I think, and will continue to play a role until coaches get a chance to see him in the spring evaluation period in his rise. Texas recently offered as well, so that was one. It didn't happen within the last week time frame, but it happened, I think almost 2 weeks ago, so that was a big offer for Martrell Harris. So the Longhorns and the Kansas Jayhawks joined schools like Mississippi State and Baylor on his early offer list, and I think he's one of these guys that when you see his tape next year, because he didn't play his sophomore year, you're going to be like, who the heck is this Woodlands linebacker? It's Martrell Harris, folks. He's pretty daggum good.
Yeah.
You're going to know his name whenever you get to watch him next year.
He stood out at that camp. It was clear to see that.
And he's also a guy who's already got offers from Texas, Baylor, and Mississippi State. I mean, he's not a secret on the recruiting trail, but I think you're right. Whenever you're unable to go out there on the field, I think that's how a lot of people consume their football, their football content.
And justifiably so, but it's good to have a tool like this to be able to use if you're Martrell Harris to help spur your recruitment along. Say, well, you haven't really got a chance to see me in the pads. Here I am against, Reuben Owens and Alton McCaskill and all these other top running backs who you have offered.
Yeah.
Here I am doing my thing against these guys.
Absolutely. Finally, let's get to our recruit of the week. Our recruit of the week is Mansfield Legacy 2021 defensive end David Abiara. 6'4", 230 kid. He's named his top 7. His top 7 are Alabama, LSU, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and a pair of in-state schools in Baylor and Texas A&M. This is a guy that is he debuted on our 2020 class 2020 rankings at texasfootball.com/recruiting in the Super 16 at number 16, number 3 defensive end in the state, and another physical specimen that you see really blow up a game plan here when you watch his highlights.
Long arms, easy to see why all these top schools are really after him. He is that defensive end who really puts together the total package, could play in any scheme out there because of his height, size, length, and get off. He's a guy who could be a strong side against the run defensive end, but he really gets a lot of pressure in the backfield and racks up sacks. You saw him chasing down Highland Park quarterback Chandler Morris there in one of the here you go. Here he is chasing down Chandler Morris, getting pressure on Chandler Morris again. So one of those guys who all the top programs are after, and he's taken recent unofficial visits to schools like Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. But I'm keeping a close eye on Texas A&M. I mean, they do a pretty good job of recruiting guys like this in the state of Texas.
Yeah, defensive ends and real kind of beefy defensive ends at that. Do we have anybody in the comments, Ashley?
No questions.
Well,
Okay,
while
never
we're,
mind.
instead of a question, I would like to say one that slid in last night is Texas lost a commitment from 2021 Lake Travis tight end Lake McCree last night. Didn't make it into the recruiting notebook. It was already written, but that was big news for this week. I think that Lake McCree is a guy that a lot of other colleges who are looking for a tight end who can flex out wide, be a mismatch issue, those schools should really be looking and recruiting him because he is a really good player.
Yes, that's you're right. That did come down across my Twitter feed last night as well. He is Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at Next Level D1. Powers, appreciate it. And see his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting.
And
do it.
And we'll do it again next week.
Okay, we'll do it. Okay, we'll do it. If you want. I was going to cancel this segment. That's fine. We'll do
No.
it one more week. We'll do it one more week.
One more.
That's fine. Thanks, Powers.